Hello, Whitefish. Well, guess what we're doing on this rainy, cool back-to-school day? A giveaway! Last week, many of you commented on the Micah Matters shirt I was wearing and wanted to know where you could get one. Well, we have 3 we're giving away, along with a hat and some stickers. So if you would like one of these shirts to support the memory of Micah Westwolf, while also raising awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women, all you have to do is tag your friends in the comment section below, and you'll be entered in our giveaway. The more friends you tag, the more chances to win. In today's episode, we are interviewing Julie Tickle, the Executive Director of Dream Adaptive. Dream Adaptive's mission is to enhance the quality of life of individuals with disabilities by providing year-round outdoor adaptive recreational opportunities. Julie's passion and enthusiasm for making sure these individuals have access to the outdoors is truly inspiring and heartwarming. Dream Adaptive is taking part in the Great Fish Challenge. So if you feel like donating to this noble organization, you can visit the link in the description below. Today's episode is brought to you by Thrivers Coffee. Thrivers Coffee is an organic, fair trade blend roasted right here in Whitefish, Montana, with all profits going to combat human trafficking. Visit thriverscoffee.com to order your coffee and make a difference in the fight against human trafficking. Julie, thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You work for an amazing organization called Dream Adaptive.
Yeah.
What is Dream Adaptive?
Dream Adaptive Recreation is a nonprofit based here in Whitefish. We serve the entire Flathead Valley with our programming. We serve people with disabilities, all different types of disabilities, and empower them through outdoor recreation. Amazing.
How did you get into this line of work? And you're the executive director, correct?
I am, yes. Yeah. I have the honor of steering the ship.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dream has been around, just a little history about Dream. Dream has been around since 1985, which is 5 years before the Americans with Disability Act was signed into law by Congress. So the folks that gathered up here in the Flathead Valley were definitely ahead of the curve, and they actually went to Washington, D.C. to lobby for the ADA. So our little corner of the universe here was fighting for the rights of the disabled community before it kind of hit the broader stage. So those folks were really recognizing that this was an outdoor mecca and that many of the spaces weren't accessible for those specifically using mobility devices. So that's how Dream was formed. Was a woman had a tour guide company and met some folks that wanted to get out and explore with disabilities, and they couldn't. So she banded together some friends, and they went out on a mission for accessibility projects. And then at the same time, a guy named Dennis Jones and a few others were up at the ski hill and had kind of heard about, there's this adaptive skiing thing happening. And so they acquired a little bit of equipment and started to get folks with physical and cognitive disabilities out on the ski hill. And then the two groups kind of merged, and Dream was born. And to this day, we are focused not only on providing programs, but we also are heavily involved in collaborative access projects, still making spaces and places in the outdoors accessible and just opening it up to so many more people.
That's amazing. And that's what's really cool about the history of this mountain. Like, I grew up skiing here in the 80s and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember, even as a little kid, there was always I remember seeing that at an early age and being like, that's really rad. And not realizing that wasn't really a normal thing on other ski resorts.
No, they were really, I think in the late 70s, adaptive skiing was, becoming a little bit more prevalent, but definitely not at every ski hill around the United States. I think today over 100 ski areas have adaptive programming similar to Dream, mm-hmm. But that's still, a smaller section of the entire industry. But yes, our little corner, has definitely been leading the charge in a lot of ways. We're thought of with some of the bigger programs across the country as one to visit or one to emulate, which is really wonderful.
Wow. Now, did you grow up here?
I did not. I grew up in balmy Buffalo, New York.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, go Bills.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah.
So you grew up in tough conditions to ski in.
Yes.
Imagine.
Definitely ski bumps, ski hills, and not mountains, right. But definitely was a 4-season kid.
Yeah.
Mom and dad dressed us in snowsuits, and we had picnics outside. So I'm not shy around all seasons, which probably led me to loving the outdoors and getting into this line of work.
What did you do before Dream Adaptive?
I worked for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, the USOPC, out in Colorado Springs. That's really where I cut my teeth in the adaptive world. I went to grad school, knew I wanted to work in sport in some capacity. I'm the daughter of two teachers, one being a 30-plus year special ed teacher, so I knew the value of including people with disabilities in all aspects of our world through my father, and made my way out to Colorado Springs to support the Olympic Training Center and the day-to-day operations of the training center. And through that experience, I learned of the Paralympic movement, which is for individuals with physical disabilities. And they were living and training, para means alongside of.
Okay.
So they were training alongside of Olympic athletes, and my heart aligned with their athleticism and their drive and determination. And so I very quickly shifted over to a full-time job working for U.S. Paralympics, and did that for a number of years.
Cool. I was going to ask you what the Paralympics means.
Mm-hmm.
So they
alongside of.
So they train together?
No,
in
different.
Some ways?
They have their own coaches.
Sure.
Obviously. Unique equipment and things like that,
right.
But alongside of being equal.
Yeah.
So when the Olympic Games happen, immediately after in the same venues, the Paralympic Games happen. So, just athletes getting after it. Sometimes it looks a little different, but the USOPC pours in resources and training facilities to support both.
That's amazing. And is it international now at this point?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. So the Paralympic Games are just like the Olympics, where nations from around the world come together for sport competition.
That really is remarkable. Mm-hmm. Now, who is it? Just physical disabilities? Like, what qualifies as someone that can participate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So many people know the Special Olympics, and maybe the Paralympics is not as well known in some ways. So the Special Olympics is for individuals of all ages with cognitive impairments and disabilities, and the Paralympics is for people with physical disabilities.
Okay.
Two separate nonprofits, two separate entities, all helping people move their bodies and compete in different sports.
And that's such an important part of just like the human condition of like competition, but also like uniting in a community to compete against another community.
Absolutely. We learn so much about ourselves through moving our bodies and pushing our perceived limits through that. And I grew up playing team sports. I was a team sport gal. And so, that aspect of community and teamwork, when you get on the team sports especially, is a huge part of what made me who I am today. And just, moving my body and pushing it athletically. Definitely. That's what we say at Dream. It's so much bigger than the sports, the recreation that we provide. Yes, we teach people how to ski and paddleboard and kayak and mountain bike, but really, and if that's their goal, I want to hut cliffs on my monoski, great. Like, we'll do our best to get you there. That's an awesome goal. But if, a lot of goals are, I just want to feel like part of the community, a social aspect or a mental health aspect. We really focus on, it's so much bigger than just learning how to ski. We see so many benefits that come from participating with us. Yeah.
And it's a remarkable, person I think of first is Tanner and his story. And I've known him for so long, and just to see him having experienced this terrible personal tragedy where he lost both of his legs, and how he is just the most remarkably strong individual, and so mentally strong in ways that he wasn't before. Not that he wasn't before, but just how he's really embraced this life-changing event that happened to him.
Yeah, speaking from the place of I don't have a disability, but I'm often finding myself in the place of talking for those that we serve. What I do see that is that people, rise to the challenge, and it's often a bumpy road. And definitely we have people come to us who are still in that grieving stage of their past life and trying to come to terms with their new normal. Someone in, Tanner's position where they weren't born with a disability, they had a life-altering accident or illness that has, redirected the course of their life in a lot of ways. We try to help see them through a lot of dark times. And, it's that community that internal grit first and foremost, and drive and determination. But really, I think the sense of community that recreation brings, and that we try to bring through DREAM programs, really helps as well.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have Tanner on the show for sure to tell his story.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I skied with Tanner. So the first, after his illness, he had another buddy here that's a mono skier, and, definitely egging him on to say, hey, of course, that's that community, right? Of like, life's not over. Let's get out and get rad together. And so I actually was able to be Tanner's first ski instructor in a sit ski, in a mono ski.
Yeah.
And he picked it up so quick. It was so awesome. I was like, well, I'm done here. I'm out of a job. He's just excelled.
Oh, that's so amazing. So what programs does Dream Adaptive 2? You guys have a summer program and a winter program?
We do. We're year round. We've been year round since about 2009. We provide in the summer, we do a motorized water sports program. So what that looks like is we do a week out at Echo Lake, and we call that a choose your own adventure week, where people can plug in for one or multiple days. The last day is set aside for military veterans with disabilities plus their family. It's a very family oriented week. And friends, just again, community. And we provide all kinds of water skiing, wakeboarding, paddleboarding, kayaking. We get a pontoon boat ride for those that are just kind of easing into the DREAM program, or just want to start off slow. We throw a tube in there for the wild ride. We just turn it into a lake experience for everyone. And then from there, we offer spin-offs of motorized skills sessions, motorized water sports. So people can sign up for an hour and a half private lesson a couple times throughout the summer on Whitefish Lake. And then they really dive into private coaching with water skiing, wakeboarding, and then we add wake surfing into the mix. We have an awesome sponsor, Launch Water Sports in Kalispell, who donates beautiful Malibu boats and drivers and coaches for our programs, which has really elevated our service, and other volunteers with other ski boats. We have this barefoot boom that we use for coaching right off the boat for those that can stand up. Has just been like a cool part of our program. Is we focus on promoting the highest level of independence possible. So that looks very different for different folks, but we've all got these cool gadgets and tools and awesome instructors who really focus on really elevating each person based on their goals and levels of independence.
Yeah.
So we do water sports. We have a paddle program, which I came from today.
Nice.
I was out at Whitefish Lake. We do 6 weeks of paddling. That's paddleboarding and kayaking. Again, we have all types of equipment to support different folks. We do some days on Whitefish Lake. We go out to Flathead Lake. And then next week, we'll have our culminating experience on Lake McDonald in Glacier. And we pack picnics and have a great day out there, which is really special that's in our backyard. So crazy.
Amazing. Yep,
so
totally.
crazy.
Yeah.
And then we do mountain biking also in the summer. And so we go to various trails around the community and offer group rides and also individual private lessons.
Wow.
Yeah. So summers are busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Summer, and we actually next week will be receiving an accessible drift boat. So we're adding fishing and floating.
Wow.
2024 coming to you
amazing.
in 2024.
Yeah.
So water, we got all the things: waters, lakes, rivers, trails. You name it, we're trying to get out there.
Yeah.
And then most people know us for our ski program in the winter, which has been around since the 80s. 88 was our first time doing ski programming up at Whitefish Mountain Resort. And we do over 1,200 ski lessons between the end of December and mid-March. So
1,200 ski lessons.
That's our big one.
Wow.
Although the summers feel just as busy, just in a different way. Over 1,200 ski lessons. And then we also do cross-country skiing at Glacier Nordic Club at the Whitefish Lake Golf Course. So
wow.
Yeah, we're busy.
This might be a stupid question, but I'm thinking if you're doing a water program and someone has a prosthetic,
yeah,
how does it not fall off if they fall?
Well, that's
in
a
the
great
water?
question. Also, think about skiing.
Yeah, right.
We've had folks, you have to consider like, oh, you're on a ski chairlift and maybe someone has a lower limb prosthesis.
Right.
Like, how do you keep it from not falling off when you're sitting on the chairlift and your equipment's heavy and carrying it down? There's all different types of ways to support individuals if they want to keep their prosthetic limbs on, for sure. Different straps and different belts and things. But it's definitely one of our policies that if someone has a lower limb prosthesis that there's got to be a strap to them in the winter when they're riding the chairlift. We don't want to take someone out down below.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's stories of limbs falling off and people like freaking out because there's a limb, laying on the side of the ski hill or here and there, and they not realizing that it's not someone's, it's a prosthetic and not, they didn't have a yard sale and lose their leg. It was a prosthetic. So anyway, yeah.
Amazing.
We take a lot of care, and each person is different, and temperature of the residual limbs like shrink and swell, just like our bodies shrink and swell in heat and stuff. So it's definitely a challenge of someone who wears prosthetics is really managing, temperature, rubbing, things like that. So yeah, all the considerations that, people without disabilities don't have to consider.
So with that in mind, it's like we're kind of in this amazing technological age where we have, ski equipment and snowboard equipment has advanced so much. Mm-hmm. I imagine the same can be said for prosthetics as well.
Yeah, prosthetics are amazing. Definitely not my complete wheelhouse, but I know there's all these different types of prosthetics, not only for day-to-day life that have, computer chips in them and in their knees if they're above the knee amputee, and same for arms that are just changing the way that people are moving their bodies in a more natural way. There are prosthetics now that you can actually attach in through the bone. So it's almost like you can take it off still, but there's essentially a rod that comes out of your femur and into the prosthetic limb, so that the connection, right? It's all about the connection to the prosthesis and that it's a tight, secure one. And so there's some wild things out there that all have their pros and cons. There's this guy named Mike Schultz who was a pro moto athlete who ended up getting in a gnarly accident and losing his leg above the knee. But being kind of the gear junkie that he was, it often takes those with lived experiences to further the technology for people with disabilities. And so he went on to develop what's called a moto knee, and it uses, it's crazy, it uses Fox mountain bike shocks. And he also created a Versa foot. So he created a knee and a foot using just straight up Fox mountain bike shocks. And not only does he use it, but all of his competitors who, so now he's a Paralympic athlete. So he still motos, but he's now a Paralympic snowboarder, a 2-time medalist, I believe, in Paralympic snowboarding. But he lines up and he looks down the line and everyone's either wearing his knee or his foot that he's competing against. So, but it's a game changer, the way that he's come up with the knee using mountain bike parts really just, again, lets people send it and live life to the fullest. And it's pretty awesome to watch the different technologies
totally
come out.
I can't imagine once Boston Dynamics get to a point with their robotics, where people just truly get bionic. Absolutely.
There's hands, and definitely I've seen that, a lot with hands. But the knees, again, have computer elements to them. But I definitely have seen some crazy things that are on the future and out now, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the demonstrations of the reflexes of these robotic hands, just catching stuff. It's this might get to a point where the Paralympics are actually doing crazier stuff than us normal humans.
Absolutely. There have been, you hear of the stories about the blade runners who use the cheetah legs, which they're called those running blades. And there's definitely been a lot of studies done to ensure that there's not an unfair advantage. So there's classification systems. They get kind of complicated in the Paralympics based on disability. So you have to be classified with a certain disability to compete against other people with a similar disability. No two people are the same with disabilities, but they try to classify them. But there's definitely, as new technologies coming out, they're having to do all this research to ensure that there's not an unfair advantage. And then there was the gentleman, the athlete that was competing with his blades and running just as fast. I believe he made the Olympics, with prosthetic limbs. So that's really where the dialogue started. Is it an unfair advantage to actually not have your legs and run on prosthetics? So yeah, I'm sure there'll be more of that.
So that's interesting. So would a categorization be like someone that's below the knee or versus above the knee amputation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So all different types of classifications like that, or spinal cord, those who have spinal cord injuries, what level of spinal cord injury, what function do they have? Do they have their abs? Do they have their, can they use their triceps? So different classifications for different disability types. Yeah. It gets complicated. Yeah.
But it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. When you get to that high level of sport, you want it to be as fair as possible. And they're figuring out how to make it better all the time.
What tends to be the most popular event in the Paralympics? Is there one that always just captures people's attention? I would imagine like track and field's probably popular.
Track and field, just like the Olympic Games, I'd say. If you haven't seen for Winter Games, if you haven't watched sled hockey, that's a pretty fun sport to watch in the Paralympic Winter Games.
Cool.
But, another really unique one for the Paralympics, I'm thinking winter, is watching ski racers who are visually impaired or blind navigate downhill courses with guides, calling their turns. We at Dream host we host two different groups. One is from the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind. We host them annually, and they bring up a group of high school students from Florida who which have never been in snow before, and we teach them how to Nordic ski and downhill ski. And then a group of injured veterans with the Whitefish Veteran Support Team. They have last year brought in a group of visually impaired veterans, and we plan to do it again. But talk about trust building with your guide. And then, have you ever tried to ski with your eyes closed?
I think maybe when we were like teenagers and stuff.
Yeah. So
it's a little gnarly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at the Paralympic level, they're hauling tail down a slick race course and doing it.
What?
Yeah, again, different classifications. So some are, partially sighted and others are completely blind, and they're going for it. So that's a cool one to check out.
Do they have like
headsets?
A headset?
Mm-hmm. At the level, at this beginning level, we have different strategies and ways to do it. But as you elevate into more difficult terrain, you use headsets.
Right. Well, so now that skateboarding is the Olympics, there are amazing videos of like blind skateboarders. I wonder if that will become a thing, or is...
Yeah, there's a process for just for the Olympic side, the Paralympic side on vetting sports and figuring out, I think a lot of it is how many countries in the world have those development programs, so that, again, because at that stage or even in the pipeline leading up to it, is it a sport that has that diversity in location, and that enough countries, find it as an appealing sport.
Do you work with Two Bear Therapeutic Riding Center?
We share a lot of participants and volunteers because we serve very similar clientele and have very similar missions. They're kind of the organization. They're on our website. They're the ones that we promote as, they're PATH certified. They have an amazing staff. We've vetted each other in a way to say, we both have similar values in promoting, independence and our safety protocols and procedures. So they're definitely the one in the Valley that we tend to send folks to if they're looking for adaptive riding lessons or equine assisted therapies. They're definitely the one. Not that others in the community aren't wonderful. They're just the ones that we've aligned with due to proximity. And again, we share a lot of the same folks.
That's so great. We have these resources up here.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, broadly talking about the Flathead Valley and the number of nonprofits here is just something that definitely solidified my desire to be in the Flathead Valley with a nonprofit background, is just seeing how everyone supports each other. I was at the Great Fish launch last night, the Great Fish Community Challenge, sponsored by the Whitefish Community Foundation.
What's up?
Yeah,
Big
it's
event.
this huge event, and just, my heart just fills with so much pride and joy to live in this community when you see so many wonderful individuals passionately leading all of these nonprofits. There's 78 in that challenge, but there's so many others. But yeah, it's just amazing. It's an amazing place that we live with so many folks lifting up missions and other people.
So that brings up an interesting question I was going to ask, is what are the hurdles people with disabilities face that most people don't realize?
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, I'm speaking from someone, without lived experience, but someone who definitely serves those with disabilities. And, we all think about, since the ADA, I think a lot of our minds go to those physical barriers in a community, and we think about people, with physical disabilities, how do they move around and get around? And we've come a long way. There's definitely a long way to go to ensure our spaces and places are accessible, like physically accessible. But I think the broader context of what barriers do people with disabilities, any disability faces, they use the term ableism. And so it's kind of the people's thoughts and opinions, whether they're known or unknown, that people are having them, just about people with disabilities. I think there's still broadly this thought, again, this kind of bias that people without disabilities are superior, and that people with disabilities, there's something wrong with them and they're inferior. And there's just so much of that mentality still in our world that just, combating that and ensuring that someone with a disability, that's just a part of who they are. They are, and that is part of who they are, but there's so much more about them as a human being, and they're not less than, they're equal. And I think just that thought still is prevalent in our world, that bias. And so combating ableism is just a huge challenge. People shouldn't be sensationalized for doing their daily tasks. There's this woman called Stella Young. I believe she has since sadly passed, but she gave a great TED Talk on it's called I'm Not Your Inspiration. And what she says is, when she was a young child, she has a physical disability and navigated the world. She's a wheelchair user. And when she was a child, a community member came up to her parents and said, we want to nominate Stella for, maybe she was in high school, for a Community Achievement Award. And the parents turned to this community member and said, she's a typical teenager. We can't get her to clean her room or brush her teeth or, get good grades. Why do you want to nominate her for Community Achievement Award? And it's because she had a disability and she was just getting through her day-to-day life. And, that's one example of ableism. But, I don't know if you've heard the term inspiration porn, where there are these things using someone with a disability to inspire those without disabilities, right?
It's look how good we have it.
Yeah, right. And so I think that's really what the barriers are.
Yeah.
There's so many other with healthcare, and
right.
People with disabilities get paid less in the general workplace than people without disabilities. There's so many barriers, but I think just this overall broad umbrella ableist mentality needs to go.
Yeah.
And we need to start seeing people with disabilities as not less than, but 100% equal.
Wow, that's something that you really never really think about.
How many times, you see someone mono-skiing at the resort, and our goal is to normalize that, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to ski with their family, but their equipment might look different, which is a little bit of a head turner. But just because they're out there skiing, that's normal in this community, right?
Totally.
But if you ski with one of our athletes, you know how many times they get interrupted and be like, hey girl, hey dude, great to see you out here.
Rock on, man. You get it.
And it's not coming from a mean place, but think about if you were the individual with a disability just getting cheered on for getting up and doing your daily tasks, and it's just, everyone wants to be equal and seen as equal. And there's more hurdles for them to face, and that I'll never, I don't want to say I'll never know. The disabled community is the only minority group that anyone could join at any time.
Whoa.
Right? So you have to be careful of, I might know what that is like. Right now I don't, but I might know tomorrow what it's like. So I just think, shifting, hopefully, and, we start in our corner of the world, but hopefully just giving people a broader perspective of what ableism is and how we can be allies.
Right. That's a big conversation, is understanding what discrimination actually looks like in all of its forms, and understanding that that kind of ableism is kind of something people might be doing that they don't realize they're doing.
Yeah, it's not malicious. Like I said, on the ski hill, people, cheering on dream athletes. Granted, they are in a lesson and we are very visible, but if you see just, anyone out there doing their thing, not making any other deal of it if you saw someone else doing it.
Man,
unless they're hucking a cliff, and then definitely, heckle them from the top of chair 5 or something, or as you're going over on chair 5.
Right.
But, game on then.
Totally. Well, I think what's also bringing like a positive spotlight to these athletes is like the nitro circus.
Totally.
You see those guys on wheelchairs like doing double backflip 360s and stuff, and it's like, that is insane.
So insane. Yeah. People with disabilities have hopes, dreams, goals, and it's just as diverse as, the whole world population. So it's awesome to see some of the, kind of X Games style adaptive athletes really pushing the bar. Yeah. For sure.
That's such an amazing point you brought up too, that like we're all we're all just like one bad accident or even one disease away.
Yeah, right.
Like, look how many people became disabled from COVID.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Having a disability is kind of like it's a long term. So, like permanent disability is a long term thing that impacts you. And it could be a number of things. Again, a lot of the population is born with a disability, but many, acquire it. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously looking through the world with a different lens when you have a disability, but they're humans and people first and foremost. And my hope is that we can normalize that as just a part of who they are. Right. It's not the whole picture.
And making sure people feel welcome. I mean, we live in a time now where it's really a lot safer, where 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, it's like people weren't living past 20.
Right.
People were getting their arms torn off by wild animals all the time. Yep. It's like you were lucky if you didn't have something terrible happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. With, obviously improved healthcare and other things, we're all able to live longer and maybe bounce back from some accidents or illnesses that 50 years ago we wouldn't, but then they're navigating a world that wasn't in some ways set up for that. And the hope is that we continue to strive to make improvements in healthcare and in different ways in our communities to
affordable healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's got to be a huge one, because I mean, these prosthetics can't be cheap.
No. And the crazy thing is in a lot of ways, people with disabilities, cross section are part of a lower socioeconomic status, but often it is because of all the health care costs, or they might not be able to work full time. There's definitely some government assistance programs that limits the amount. If you receive some of that, you can't work 40 hours and get full paychecks, because it'll bump you out of getting, your assisted health care and things like that. So it really is kind of pigeonholing some folks with disabilities into how much they could work or earn depending on what type of assistance programs they receive. So it's definitely a juggling act, and there's a lot of great organizations out there lobbying for improvements, but it's definitely an uphill climb for that population, for the disabled population. Yeah. 1 in 4 adults will have a disability in their life that impacts them physically, a long-term disability. So
1 in 4.
1 in 4. Yep.
That's a high number.
It is. Yep. So
wow.
I hope that, for all of our sakes, right? It could be any one of us. Yeah. And there's tons, millions of people with disabilities that, deserve better.
What does then that look like as far as access to like hiking trails? It's like, everyone just thinks, well, as long as there's a wheelchair ramp in a building. Right. Yeah. But like on the broader conversation or the broader scope of how do we make sure people can access like our public lands, for example? That's
a great question, right? It's just gone are the days that like front country, what we call front country and the recreation site, and the recreation side of things is acceptable for access. We at Dream, back to our roots, are focused on helping people get outside, not just on the paved pathways and walkways. And, it looks like, to me, it's obviously it's a collaborative, project. And so here in our little corner of the world, we're currently working with Gateway to Glacier Trails on the Cedar Flats Trail project. And we're working with Flathead Rivers Alliance on a project to make the Three Forks of the Flathead River more accessible with their put-ins and takeouts and restrooms and campsites. And so I think what it looks like, is a lot of community rising up and realizing that when you think of the ADA, a lot of people, whether you're building a building or maybe a trail network, you think, oh my gosh, to make this all ADA compliant is just going to be a heavy lift from a resource standpoint financially and just work. It's all got to be at a certain % grade. People with disabilities don't want, if they're recreating, they don't want it a sterilized environment. Just like you or I, again, we're all humans and we want, if we're recreating, we want varying levels of risk and fun and adventure. And so it's a collaboration to figure out how we can make more outdoor spaces accessible and fun for everyone. There's a principle called the universal design principle that we're seeing in a lot of public buildings, but also in recreation spaces where when it doesn't center on the ADA aspect of it, it's saying making spaces and places the most usable for the broadest amount of people. And so sometimes that is making ADA ramps, but it's also thinking of the aging population, parents with strollers, right? When you make things, thoughtfully build things, it doesn't have to sterilize it, but you have to just think about the broad user group and how many people could benefit from widening something or removing a set of stairs. Or, at trailheads, one of the things we see are gates or big boulders that block potentially it's a non-motorized trail, but so then they put up these barriers. Well, it doesn't allow, we use 3-wheeled bikes, hand cycles, foot pedal recumbents. It doesn't allow people that use different mobility devices, wider strollers to get through.
Totally.
And so in our neck of the woods, that's what we're working on, is just opening people's eyes to different ways to see projects and hopefully be more inclusive.
And that's a good point. People with strollers, elderly, and that kind of just like makes it intuitive that the accessibility would then lend itself to everybody.
Absolutely. And again, not to sterilize things. And, we do a lot of trail work with other organizations. Well, it's other organizations that put in the sweat equity, but we do a lot of kind of consulting and bring, especially our mobility devices or our bikes, out to trails. And, a lot of it is small tweaks. We say, you have this huge trail project. Let us tell you a few tweaks that you can make throughout this project that will either kind of make or break it for those that use hand cycles or recumbent cycles. We tend to call them broadly mobility devices, even on trails, because if it's a hiking only trail, non-biking, those with disabilities under the ABA, the Architectural Barriers Act, depending on what land, whether it's public land or, other Forest Service, Glacier National Park, even though it's a non-biking, hiking only trail, people with disabilities that might use a mobility device can ride what we call a mobility device. It's also called a hand cycle or a foot pedal recumbent bike.
Sure.
That becomes like you put on your hiking shoes, they transfer out of their day wheelchair into a different mobility device, which is this cycle, into their mobility device, and then they can hike with their family and friends. Where their daily wheelchair couldn't take them on trails. Right. But they could get up to Avalanche Lake, hike at a hiking pace on essentially a hand cycle or a foot pedal recumbent, and it's allowed under the law because it meets the definition of a wheelchair.
That's so remarkable.
Mm-hmm. So then we spent a week last year with Glacier National Park on mapping out trails like Avalanche and other places that if they made a few tweaks, it would allow for these mobility devices to get out there.
Oh, Trail of the Cedars.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I remember, was that adapted with that in mind?
It was.
Boardwalk?
Yeah. So Dream was part of that early project. I'm not sure when it was put in, 80s or 90s. And
I think it was the 90s.
Yeah. So that's true ADA compliant. But that attaches to Avalanche Lake, right? Mm-hmm. And so, again, opening the eyes of trail crews and, entities like the park to just say, hey, if you, do a few things, we can, to open it up to a broader group of folks.
Doesn't sound like it'd be very complicated then to instead of making it a true switchback, just making a little bit more of a
exactly
bend kind of an idea?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're spot on. So just some things like that, really off camber sections are hard, but not much. Pinch points, a tree and a big boulder that someone couldn't pass through.
Yeah.
Removing some of those pinch points, but it's not much.
Yeah. Is avalanche accessible in that capacity? Like,
we have had some hand cyclists hike it.
That's pretty impressive.
Definitely a few tweaks that would improve it. And we're hopeful to continue to work on places like that. But yeah, totally doable.
Probably Hidden Lake. Actually, Hidden Lake probably isn't quite accessible because there's a lot of stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now
See,
you'll
now
start
I'm thinking.
Yep. Think through the lens of, but obviously the terrain dictates, some of that, but could there have been other ways to do that so that strollers and the elderly and people that use mobility devices might have been able to enjoy that, essentially boardwalk. Yeah, I always love the opportunity to just kind of, share with people, how we're doing a great job in our community. It's always refreshing to see other entities come to Dream now and say, we're putting in this trail, or we're thinking about making this new state park, or we've heard about this action track chair thing. I don't know if you saw Lone Pine has this thing called talk about technology, an action track chair. It's got like tank tracks. It's a off-road wheelchair that's got like tank tracks.
Is it motorized?
Motorized. Yeah. And so there's one for rent, or you can sign up to use it at Lone Pine State Park. And go on some of the trails that might not be friendly to other mobility devices. But we love it now that our community, it's very refreshing, is rising up and coming to us. We're not always having to go, poke into different projects and say, wear my dream hat and, want a seat at the table to have conversation around, the latest and greatest projects. People are also coming to us, which is wonderful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Lone Pine, I remember, that just got released, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, within the last 4 months, probably,
yep.
They got their track chair up and running, and you can give them a call and reserve it.
I think Diane Conradi told me about that one.
Yes, yep, she was heavily involved in that. And there's a bunch of other state parks across the state of Montana and across the nation that are getting those.
What about team sports? Do you guys do anything with team sports? We've got these facilities around here. Yeah. I imagine that would be like a good spot to do stuff.
Yeah, we don't right now. So our mission is definitely outdoor recreation based. Not to say that we can get into some outdoor team sports, but right now we're focused on kind of the more recreational, involving nature aspects. So floating and fishing is our next one. We are looking forward to starting a paved path cycling program. So a lot of what we do right now is on dirt with some more burly bikes. Mm-hmm. And we know that there is a huge need and desire for more paved path cycling. So we're looking forward to growing our fleet of different bikes and trikes and things to start offering paved path. There's a couple rails to trails opportunities, around
cool.
here. So there's a lot of great paved pathways that we know we can get cycling going to. Huh. So we've kind of got the need in our community is great. Unfortunately, we've wait lists for all of our programs right now in the winter and the summer. So we're working really hard. And the community is wonderfully supportive, but we're working really hard to increase our budget so that we can hire more staff and get more equipment and train more volunteers and hopefully serve more people. So, we've got kind of a program plan right now with our projected growth, but we always love hearing from the community new ideas and sports and recreational opportunities that they would like to have and see. And if we can't do it, then, we're hopeful that we can mobilize some other folks to. I sit on a kind of leading the charge to also help like Missoula get their own adaptive recreation program, because right now we're the only year-round programming, this side of the state.
Oh, wow.
So for adaptive recreation. So we're trying to help others mobilize other opportunities in other areas of the state to help folks. So
that's great.
Yeah.
How many people do you serve on average? Do you guys have like numbers for how many individuals you guys work with?
Yeah, so we serve over 300 unique individuals each year through all of our programs, and then counting volunteers. Our volunteers are definitely the backbone of what we do, but we also provide a lot of services and training to them. So we have between 150 and 200 volunteers that plug in as well, and so we see that as almost participating with Dream, because it's therapeutic for everyone. Everyone gets something out of it, and so over 300 athletes, participants with disabilities, close to 200 volunteers that plug in from our community annually. And then it's really hard to track the number of family and friends that join, but we really do promote that in as many programs as we can, keep safe with the numbers that come out. So
that's amazing. 300. That's a lot of people you serve.
Yeah. And to be honest, we do it's all mouth to mouth at this point. We have a website. We're a little bit on social media, but at this point, just due to capacity limitations, and obviously keeping a keen eye on safety,
right.
We hope to grow that. The need in the community is vast. We'd love to do some more outreach. We know there's a lot more people and groups. We'd like to go into the reservations and offer programming.
Great.
The opportunities are just abundant, and we look forward to continuing to strive for the stars, and hopefully get more programming built. So.
Oh, that's so amazing. So
job security.
Totally. Right.
Hopefully.
If someone wanted to volunteer, what kind of volunteers are you guys looking for?
We have all different types of roles. Obviously, like the ones in the forefront are program facing roles. So being an instructor or a buddy in some capacity, we kind of name them an instructor or an assist. So you don't have to lead. You can plug in some sport capacity. We need equipment. If anyone knows how to wrench on bikes, and kind of an equipment guru, we have those roles. We have, like, for the summer, we call them onshore roles. So still involved with our programs, but not necessarily maybe out on the water. So we have all kinds of program roles to plug into. We also host a couple of fundraising events each year. So we're always looking for folks that have a heart for kind of event planning and networking and logistics in that sense. There's always stuff to do around the office. So we definitely don't turn away good help.
Yeah.
But yeah, volunteers are so important.
Have you met Doug Betters?
I haven't personally, but I know of him, and we would love to have him plug into our program.
I'll have to introduce you guys.
That would be awesome.
He's a good family friend. He and my dad were tight back in the day.
Yeah, we'd love to have Doug come out and witness our programs and plug in a way that would feel good. But yeah, we would love to. I know he's been so supportive of the Flathead Valley through his different endeavors, and I think he would have a heart for what we do, and would love to have him come witness a program day for
That's
sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he and my dad used to do this event in the 80s called the Doug Betters Winter Classic.
I've heard
it's epic. All these like actors, celebrities, and NFL players coming up and stuff, and doing all these cool events for the kids and stuff.
Yeah.
They used to do this one where they would like getting these slickers, and like kid would get on their back and they'd like sled race down the hill.
Oh my goodness.
And it was like, I remember being on a couple of these dudes' backs, and you're like 300 pounds of just muscle, and you're just like bombing down the hill, and it's just like, this is not safe.
That sounds like a hoot, but also like from a liability side, an absolute nightmare. Yeah.
Dude, the mountain back in the 80s was like National Lampoon's.
Oh, I bet.
It was amazing.
It was wild. Yeah, absolutely. Well, definitely, at the center of what we do is safety, and a lot of it comes from, a lot of people put trust in us to either try something new, or again, like relearn something maybe that an accident has caused them to take a pause with, and maybe they need to try it in a different way. And we love to have, but that doesn't mean we can't have fun. So we have so much fun, but definitely there's a lot of thought into safety in what we do, and like I said, trust, right? If someone comes to Dream for the first time and they feel safe, then they're going to trust our instructors to start pushing their limits or their perceived boundaries, and it's really fun. Like, that's one of our favorite parts as staff, is we pour so much into getting to learn about our participants if they're new to us, from them, or they're family members or caregivers. And then we also take equally as amount of time as learning about our volunteers, because what we do is we match make.
Cool.
Because, we have, two pieces to the puzzle is, our instructors, which are mostly all volunteers, and the participant. And then we need to create this safe and trusting environment, whether we're paddling or skiing, because that's when the magic happens, right? Is, you don't even realize that you're learning something new often is because you create this magical environment where, we're creating this safe and kind of trusted environment where if you ask someone to say, hey, will you try this? And it seems a little scary. Well, they might be up to do it if they feel like we've built that trust along the way. So,
well, it's got to be important too, because I imagine there's got to be some PTSD involved in some of these traumatic incidents that have led these people down this path.
Absolutely. I mean, we definitely have a bunch of folks that have had life-altering accidents or injuries from doing mountain sports. So,
wow.
There's that aspect of it of, hey, like, I need to get back on snow. I got hurt on snow. Dream lead the way. And there's definitely, we're navigating the emotional side of it. I think as I mentioned before, there's a lot of grief involved in working through, new normal, and my body won't do work like it used to. And there's the frustration, and, there's a lot to work through. Again, just not teaching the sport, but, kudos to our program staff in training our volunteers, and obviously all the volunteers who really just pour their everything into it and strategize. And there's a lot of side conversations with our program team and the volunteers of just, you can tell when they're really into it, because their brains are spinning and wheels are turning to say, how can we approach this differently to help our athlete, our participant, be more successful? And the adaptive equipment helps, but it's also just strategies. And
right.
There's so much heart that goes into each lesson. We ask participants what their goals are, like I said, our volunteers, and there's just, it's just magical to see it all come together. And we don't get it right the first time. And sometimes we go back to the drawing board across seasons long of trying different things. People with disabilities are each so unique, and two people that are wheelchair users could be vastly different. So, we say no assumptions at Dream. We get to know the person and what their goals are, and we focus on what they can do. And then we find really cool ways of using duct tape and other ways to help them leverage their abilities.
Right.
Sometimes it's not sexy.
Yeah. Whatever gets the job done, though.
Yeah.
Whatever gets them down the hill.
Yeah.
So how can people find out more about Dream Adaptive?
Yeah.
And what's going on with the Great Fish Challenge right now?
Yeah, the exciting time of the Great Fish Community Challenge.
Yeah.
Dream has a website. We're at dreamadaptive.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Dream Adaptive Montana. That's a fun way to kind of keep up. We try to post daily of just what we're up to or different things that are going on, and also try to provide some nuggets on disability etiquette and awareness through our social media channels, just little nuggets of information to, again, kind of combat, our ableist society and just help. Again, I don't believe that, anyone that runs into Dream or our athletes are being mean or malicious in any way. It's just an opportunity for education. So,
right.
Yeah. So our social media is a great way to find us. Definitely say hi if you see us on the trails and lakes and want to plug in, or the winter. You can find us in the Spruce Lot at Whitefish Mountain Resort 7 days a week.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Yeah.
I've seen you guys there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We hope to be moving on up in the next couple of years and having our own home up there, permanent home. But until then, you can find us in the Spruce Lot.
Great.
And then, yes, the Great Fish Community Challenge, sponsored by the Whitefish Community Foundation, is a 5-week period of giving. It's a fundraising campaign in which, with one gift, our community members can donate to any one of those multiple of those 78 nonprofits. So it's really just a campaign to elevate these 78 nonprofits and give an opportunity for the community to learn more about all the wonderful services that are being provided, and kind of see what draws their heart into alignment. Part about being in a community is giving back, and especially with all the new faces coming to town, this is a great time to learn more and then maybe pick a few nonprofits to really dive in and commit and invest in the community. So
Oh, that's so amazing.
There'll be a bunch of different, you can go on the Whitefish Community Foundation website. There are pop-up donation stations around the valley, down to Big Fork, Lakeside, Whitefish, Kalispell, Columbia Falls. There'll be pop-up donation stations around. There's also a fun run and community celebration on September 9th. That's a great day to just really, there'll be nonprofit booths so people can walk around and learn about the nonprofits. So yeah, it's just a period that also from a nonprofit standpoint, it's a grind to keep your messaging out in front of people. And this just really helps all of us nonprofits. It definitely takes away some of the labor involved in fundraising events. So it definitely is great from that standpoint. It alleviates a lot of stress and labor intensive fundraising to really just have the community foundation step in and help us get our missions out there.
It's remarkable. I mean, running a nonprofit is no easy task. I mean, you're just relying on donor dollars.
Yeah.
And luckily you guys have an amazing cause. So hopefully that really helps you guys.
Yeah, it resonates. We all live here in the Valley, or many of us live here in the Valley because of access to outdoor recreation. We're surrounded by this beautiful natural playground. And so I think our mission does resonate with a lot of folks. It's definitely about building relationships. So we love the great fish, but what we really look forward to is having people join our family as either, there are many ways to get involved as a volunteer, but definitely joining our donor family, and that's just as special to us. So we welcome our donors out to program days or to swing by the office. We really want to build relationships with those who feel strongly about our cause because, we need them more than their donation. We need them to be advocates in the community and share our mission with others. So we think of those who give to us as definitely a critical part of our family.
That's amazing. Well, you guys have a great reputation. Every time your name comes up, people are like, oh, Dream Adaptive is amazing. So
well, thank
that's
you.
a big part of it, just getting the word out, word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth. And also, we really take to heart when people invest in us. Again, whether it's a participant trusting us with guiding them into a new sport or elevating their skills, or it's a volunteer choosing to give of their time. Everyone's time is very valuable, or it's a donor. We really take that to heart. So thank you for saying that. We really pride ourselves on being a reputable nonprofit that people can trust and are really proud to plug into.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun.
Totally. It was fun when I met you on Ed's show, The Fish Tank. Big shout out to Ed. I love what he's doing with that show.
Yeah, that's so fun.
I know, but that's so cool that at the end of the show, he gave us both a donation to your nonprofit and my nonprofit Deliver Fund. It's just so great to see the community coming together like that, what Ed's doing. It's really kind of a heartwarming time to be in this community right now.
It is. We're all in it together, for better, for worse. Yeah. And, I think it feels like such a strong community. And I love the fact that you can't go anywhere without seeing someone and just someone who shares, in similar passions. So, shout out to Ed and all the businesses, that support so many of the nonprofits. We're definitely all a team in this.
Heck yeah, we are.
In this world. So, it's nice to be a part of it.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for being on. Good luck with the Great Fish Challenge.
Thank you.
And hopefully when Tanner's around this winter, we can have both of you guys on. And
that would be so fun, but we should shred too.
Oh, totally.
We should shred and then come on and talk about it.
Oh, we'll do a little mini doc and go out there with the cams and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think that would be so awesome. Well, thank you so much for giving me the platform to share our mission and kind of our hopes and dreams for our community in regards to, promoting inclusion.
That's
absolutely
important.
And representation. So thank you.
You got it. We'll have you back again.
All right. Thank you.
You got it.